One of the hardest things that a parent can do is to help their children overcome obstacles that they are sure to face in this life. Whenever they fail at a sporting event or in academics, they oftentimes just want to quit. So, how do we help our kids continue on, to continue to try, and to never give up? Well, in this episode, we're going to look at 3 ways to help our children overcome obstacles. Stay tuned.
Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to the Fighting Families podcast with Preston Cave. We are in a spiritual battle, and we have a real enemy. That enemy is not our family. It's the goal of this podcast to help you fight for the family. And now, welcome your host, the Mission and Discipleship Coordinator for TBM, Preston Cave.
Well, welcome to this week's episode of the Fighting Families podcast. My name is Preston Cave, and I'll be your host. And we have a special guest with us today. His name is Greer, and he is the president and founder of Overcoming Obstacles Ministry, which is super exciting. He's an American Ninja Warrior, a 3-time participant. We're going to talk about that here in a little bit. But first, Jared, why don't you just introduce yourself to our listeners? Tell us a little bit about you, your family, where you're from, and a little bit about the Overcoming Obstacles Ministry.
Yeah, man, dude, thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here, excited to hang out. I'm really excited about your podcast, what this is all about, man. So I appreciate it. As you said, I have been a competitor on American Ninja Warrior, and I'll kind of share about that. But most importantly, man, I've been married to my wife, Sally, for 13 years, and just madly in love with her. God blessed me to give me an amazing, godly wife. And I have 2 sons, Micah and Bennett. They are about to be 9 and about to be 6. And so we are living in this fun season of parenthood where our boys are crazy and they're like little American Ninja Warriors themselves. And so, so definitely a great stage of life, great season of parenting. I was a youth pastor for 12 years, but started this ministry called Overcoming Obstacles we've been doing it full-time for 2.5 years, but we did it part-time for about 2.5 as well. So we've been doing it close to 5 years now, which is crazy, and just using obstacle course as a way to share the gospel.
That's awesome, man. Well, listen, today's episode, we're really going to be talking about how parents, a lot of times, we always struggle with getting our kids motivated whenever they have challenges, like if they fail in sports or they fail in academics and they just say, you know what, I don't want to try anymore. So this whole episode is about trying to get them to overcome obstacles. So I love that it's the title of your ministry. That's why we had you come on to talk about how to get our kids to overcome obstacles in life that they're sure to face. So tell us a little bit about your story and why you started Overcoming Obstacles in the first place.
Absolutely, man. So working with teenagers, I always try to use sports as a way to connect with them, as a way to get in their life and just really connect with them. And so just kind of fell into the ninja thing. So some of my students were like, dude, have you seen American Ninja Warrior? I was like, yes, I have seen that. This was years ago. And they said, man, you should try to be on the show. And I was like, man, I have no idea how that works. How do you get on a TV show? But Googled it, found out you send in a submission video showing your I guess your ninja skills. I don't know. But
how did you even show your ninja skills?
I just tried to show that I was athletic. I don't really know anything about ninja. So just showed some stuff and made a video with my students actually and sent it in and they did not pick me. And so I was like, dang, what do I do? And I know while I want to be a model today of someone who overcomes obstacles and doesn't give up, I kind of gave up. And so I kind of moved on, didn't have any thoughts about getting on the show again. Just like whatever. And so I started eating a bunch of good food and just gained some weight and was like, man, living the high life, have an amazing family, amazing job. This is good. But then a year later, someone from the show called me and said, hey, we would love for you to be a participant on the show. And I was like, are you kidding me? That's crazy. They're like, hey, but you have to send in a new video and you have to show us who you are. You have to show us your skills again. I was like, oh my gosh.
But you were like overweight now, right? Like you were not overweight, but
but I was 30 pounds heavier than, I wasn't ready to be on American Ninja Warrior. And so I was like, what in the world? What am I going to do? And so I lost 30 pounds in 30 days, which is super crazy. Don't do it that way.
That's another episode, how to exercise and eat well. I think we're going to have you on for that as well. So that's a side note, by the way.
Absolutely. So, so I lose all this weight. I sent in a new video, had a lot of fun making it with my students, and through that, they like, you get to be a competitor on the show. I'm like, this is crazy. What a platform.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I'm going to go out there and crush it. Like, honestly, I'm like, I've always done pretty good at sports. I'm just going to show up. I've been doing pull-ups. I've been running. I'm ready, man. Like, but I had never been on American Ninja Warrior, like an obstacle course. Like, I've done like, you know, like maybe like army type obstacle courses, but nothing like these crazy obstacles, or like an inflatable. Every youth pastor has been on an inflatable obstacle course, right? And so that's all I knew. So I show up and I see all these crazy obstacles. You got this 14-foot warped wall. You've got all this crazy, just grip strength stuff. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. Kind of got a little intimidated. But, you know, at the same time, I'm still thinking, I think I can do this. And so I was one of the first few guys to go. And that's not a good thing, because you don't get to watch people like fail and learn from their failures. And so the first obstacle used to be these angle steps. They call them the quad steps. And so you just jump across those. I think most people could do that. Most healthy people could do that. So I do the first obstacle, but the second obstacle is called the log drop. And you hug this log, like with everything you've got, and it's going to drop, and the jolt is either going to knock you off or you're going to make it to the platform. And so I'm hanging on to it, never done anything. I really didn't have that good a grip with my legs. I just had a good grip with my hands. And so I'm hanging on, and it drops, and I start to lose my grip. But I hung on for a little bit, and then eventually I lose my grip, and I'm falling, and I'm thinking, man, I'm definitely done. This is over. Hopes and dreams. I thought I was going to hit a buzzer, tell the world about Jesus, but here I am, falling on the second obstacle. And so I'm sure that as I'm falling, you could probably dramatically hear the crowd go, oh, you know. But to my surprise, half my body lands on the mat. So I'm like kind of laying there halfway on the mat, and you could probably hear the crowd like, yeah,
there's hope.
There's hope. He's going to make it. But I made a really foolish mistake. Like, the log that had swung out, like, I'm laying there, the log swings back and hits me right on the top of my head, man. And this hilarious moment later, but in that moment, disappointed and embarrassed, and I fall in the water, and I was like, man. And they're like, hey, we want to interview you. And they're like, nah, we don't want to interview this guy. He fell, you know. Like, and so it's just a lot of emotions going on. And I was like, and so as you're talking about overcoming obstacles, I really felt like the Lord that night pressed on my heart, like, this simple question that we all ask our kids, we all know, but simple, profound question of, what do you do when you fall down? And I was like, okay, God, I got you. And I felt like, get back up. That's the answer, the obvious answer. And so I was like, okay, Lord, I'll get back up. I'll move on. And I felt like he pressed on my heart, hey, get back up and try to get on the show again. And I thought, how in the world is that going to happen? They're not going to pick the doofus who just got smashed in the face with the log, you know? But I applied again the next season. They picked me again. I was really surprised. My students came all the way down to Houston. At that point, I was working at a church in Richardson, Texas. And my students come down to Houston and watch me. And I had a few goals. I wanted to hit the buzzer. I didn't want to look like a dummy. I wanted to at least get past the second obstacle. I wanted to do better. And so I got out there and beat the first obstacle. Second obstacle, I swung and caught this rope and beat the second obstacle. So there's progress, right?
That's right.
And then the third obstacle was called the log run. So I'd already had one log hit me in the head. So now I've got to run across this log that spins. And I had never done anything like that. And I run across it, get about halfway. I kind of trip and I fall again. And I was like, my gosh, like, I wanted to do good. I thought the Lord would use this as a platform to share the love of Jesus, but I've just kind of fallen short. I was like, man, where do I go from here? And so definitely some unfortunate events, but I come home, I'm moving on. Like, my students, we watch the show, we laugh about it. Like, it's just a lot of fun. My students use it as a way to bring their friends. Hey, my youth pastor was on Ninja. He looked like a dummy, but he was on Ninja Warrior, so it's kind of a cool thing. But then this church camp called me and said, hey, we know you're on Ninja Warrior. We know you fell early. Why don't you come to our camp? Why don't you bring an obstacle course and tell kids about Jesus? And I was like, why do you want me? Like, I know I love Jesus, but I did not do good. They're like, no, we know your heart. We believe in your skill. It's unfortunate what happened, but you could do this. And so they believed in me, which was huge, Like, I think that's a huge parenting thing too. Like, people can believe in you, even if you haven't proven yourself. Believe in your kids, but people believed in me. And so I sit down with my dad. We make an obstacle course. Some guys in my church build an obstacle course, and we take it to this camp. 500 kids. I'm nervous. All I've done so far on Ninja Warrior is fall. Like, like sweating like crazy. How's this gonna go? And so at the end of it, man, it was incredible. Like kids were screaming, and I had built this 14-foot warped wall. They're like, beat that wall. And I run up
Yeah.
the wall. I finished, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I just did that. Like the power of God helped me overcome these obstacles, overcome my nerves, because like I was like, man, all I've done is mess up, and here's an opportunity to use it for the kingdom. And it
Wow.
worked out. And so now, man, it's a full-on ministry. Like other churches heard about it, other friends let me come, you let me come do some events with you.
Yeah. When I was a student pastor, I've had you come in a couple times, and you've done an incredible job. And your story is so powerful when it comes to overcoming obstacles. I like what you said here about believing in, like somebody believed in you. And I
Yeah,
think one of the takeaways immediately that we can have from this episode of Fighting Families as parents, if we want our kids to be able to overcome obstacles whenever they face them, we have to believe in them, believe in them, and believe in them,
yeah,
because whenever we
absolutely.
believe in them, they'll start to believe in themselves. That's a really good point. Um,
Absolutely. And so,
yeah.
man, that now through that, like because this one lady, like she led the camp, she convinced the camp like board to have me. This
Mhm.
one lady believed in me, and through that, now I've got to share the gospel through this ministry with 53,000 people, and
Wow.
that's just crazy to me. And over 1,500 have given their life to Christ, and
Mm.
you know, there's a lot of evangelists out there that can kind of try to, hey, everybody, pray this prayer, give your life to Christ. And I try to give a very clear gospel presentation, and I do invite people to pray and give their life to Christ, but I try to make sure that it's a very genuine and real experience. So it's been an incredible thing, and it's all because God moved, and someone listened to the Lord and believed in me. So
Well, two things that I want to say right there is, number one, it was a lady, not a man. And now I say that only to say this:
yeah,
fathers are so important in the life of the family.
yeah,
But I think that there are going to be some single moms watching this episode right now,
yeah,
and they probably think, what can I do? I'm just a single mom. But
yeah,
just know that sometimes the single mom is the one who's the most powerful influence to change the trajectory of their
absolutely,
kiddos. So moms, don't give up.
absolutely,
That's an obstacle that you're going to have to overcome, but we'll talk about that in just a second. But the other thing, you just talked about how God used even your failures
yeah,
to make something great come up. So I think that's something else that's important for us, that we need to look at every obstacle and every failed obstacle. Whenever we fail, that's just an opportunity for God to do something
yeah,
great. So, man, what an encouraging story. I will say this. I want to ask you this real quick, Jared. I mean, you've been on the show 3 times, right?
yeah.
Now, are you still submitting to try to get on
I
the
am,
show?
yeah. So I got on in 2014 and 15. Those are the two I described, and then I submitted in 2016, and they did not pick me, which I
Okay.
was like, surprise, surprise.
All right.
All I've done is fallen early. So 2016, 17, 18, I submitted, and they did not pick me. And a lot of people would probably be like, dude, give up already, you know? But
Yeah.
I just felt let's keep going. And so 2019, I submitted again, and they actually brought me back, and had the same goals: hit the buzzer, share Jesus with the world, and try to get further. And I ended up falling on the fourth obstacle. So hey,
All right.
every year I get a
Yeah.
little further. You know, second, third, fourth. My oldest son, and his smart aleck, wonderful personality, was like, Dad, how many obstacles are on the entire show if you were to do the entire season? I was like, I think like 27, 28. He was like, Dad, you only need to beat like 24 more obstacles to beat the entire show. And I was like,
All right.
thanks, buddy. You know,
Like,
thanks,
thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks for
thanks
the
for showing me
encouragement.
that.
But it is interesting that you've been on the show and 3 times on national television. You failed, but
Thanks.
you keep. Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there just for encouragement's sake. But no, I mean, it's pretty inspiring that you fail 3 times on national television, but you're still pursuing that opportunity. You're still training. You're not giving up. So I think that that's a
Yeah,
testimony in and of itself. But real quick, we talked about the single mom, but there are probably some single dads that are watching. There are also some moms and dads who are married, but man, they've just been having a really difficult time, and they've been dealing with their own obstacles, much less their kids maybe giving them a hard time, or their kids not being motivated to overcome their own obstacles. And so
yeah.
what would you say to the parent, whether it's a mom or a dad, or even a son or a daughter, who's watching this episode right now and they are ready to just give up on their family, or they're
Yeah.
ready to give up on life, maybe commit suicide or something like that? What would you say to those people that are watching?
Yeah, man. Never give up. I mean, clearly I'm living that out with this whole Ninja Warrior thing. But in real life, I mean, never give up. The reason I keep submitting is because I hope that it can, like, Ninja Warrior in the grand scheme of things is not that big of a deal. Like, it's just a TV show. It's just an obstacle course. Honestly, like, who cares? I know it's fun. It's entertaining. But in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. But what I hope it is that it's a symbol for life, right? Like, if I can continuously try to get on the show and continuously, like I said earlier, I've fallen on the second, third, and fourth. So there's been progress every time, right? So, like, every single time I try to do it, like, the point is that I'm not going to give up, and that it can be a symbol for families, a symbol for people out there struggling, that, yeah, like, today was hard. Maybe someone has an addiction, like, they took 2 steps backwards and 1 step forward. Like, okay, yeah, maybe you had a bad day, but don't give up. You can do this. Like, with God's help, with the strength from the Lord, you can do it. And I hope one day, like, I smash a buzzer, smoke flares up, everybody goes nuts, like, I have my moment. But even if I never have my moment, like, I hope that my story shares the human element. Like, I am a Christian, 15 years old. I gave my life to Jesus. Jesus' perfection overcomes my imperfection. I am clean before God. But the reality is, practically, like Paul says in Romans 7, like, I still struggle. Like, the things I don't want to do, I do. The things I want to do, I don't do. Like, I still struggle on a consistent basis. But there's nothing that's going to stop me from pursuing the excellence and the calling that God has on my life. And so I hope that this whole ninja thing can be a symbol for people in real life, and to never give up. I mean, I look at all these Bible characters that ran into obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, but the story ends with them, doing something amazing that glorifies God. And so don't give up.
Yeah, that's so good. And suicide is a permanent solution to a temporary problem, but I'd
Yeah.
also say leaving your family is a permanent solution to a temporary problem.
Yeah.
So recognize that every problem, every obstacle that we face is temporary, and God can take, like we said earlier, our failures and actually turn them into something more amazing than we were first trying to accomplish in the first place. So,
Absolutely, man. Like, I think of Romans 8:28. Sorry to cut
mm,
you off. Romans 8:28. Like, I think, like, God works all things together for good for those who love Him and are called according to His purpose. And so, like, failure, while it seems like, man, this is the end, man, it's usually just the process that God's using to shape us and to make us more like Jesus. It usually reveals something about our character, reveals something about our life that needs to shift or change. I was thinking about, like, Joseph. My son came in last night, even though he's almost 9 years old. He was about to fall asleep, and he had watched this Joseph, like, cartoon video, and he was like, "Dad, I was thinking about that and thinking about some of the bad parts, and I'm having a hard time going to sleep." And I was like, "Okay," and he was like, "Man, how could his brothers treat him that way?" And my wife pointed out to him, like, what the brothers meant for harm, God used for good. Like, the
that's
end
good.
of Joseph's story, right? It's like that he ends up leading, and he ends up doing this amazing, thing, and ends up forgiving his brothers. And so, while what happened to me on Ninja Warrior, or what happens in someone's life, like, seems like something that's going to harm you, or that you're a failure, that this moment is just, like, is not going to work out. Usually God is in the midst of that working,
Mm.
to bring about something beautiful.
Yeah, and if we give up too quickly, we will never see the end result of that. That's so
Absolutely.
good. Hey,
Yeah.
Jared, we only have a couple minutes left, but
Okay.
we promised our listeners that we were going to give them 3 ways to help their children, to help our kids to overcome obstacles in the future. So, can you give us 3 steps, 3 ways to help our kids overcome obstacles that they're sure to face in the game of life?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as a parent and as a person, as a Christian, man, I'm just another dude on this journey. And while I'm struggling,
Oh, hey,
so many
Jared.
people out
Hey,
there that,
real quick, you
yeah.
might want to say that again. You lagged a little bit.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm just another dude who's out there, making mistakes. I know there's a lot of people out there who could share incredible depth and insight. But I do have 3 things that I thought about for me, what's working for me, in trying to help my kids overcome their obstacles. And so for me, the first thing I would say when you're trying to help your kids overcome obstacles in life is model it. Be
Mm,
the model, be the example. Um, I think that we expect our kids sometimes to be something that we're not. And so
Mm,
it's got to start with our own heart. It's got to start in our own life. So if you are facing challenges, to make sure that you show your kids how to be resilient, to show your
that's
kids how
good.
to persevere, to show your kids how to endure. Because if you're not living it, man, they're never going to live it. And so
Yeah.
be that model for your kids would be number one. Yeah, number two, man, would be something that I think is something that we need to hear over and over and over. Number two would be slow to criticize and quick to encourage.
Mm,
Be slow to criticize and quick to encourage. And the reason I say that twice, and I'm going to say it again and again and again, is because I think most parents, what we do is we criticize our kids. We don't even realize it, but we are so quick to be like, hey, don't do that, don't do this. And we just point out all the negative in our kids' life, and all our kids ever hear is, I'm not good enough.
mm,
But if our kids will understand that they are made in the image of God, and they have purpose, and that God has a plan for them, and that they understand that they are formed in the image of the Creator, that they'll rise and become amazing young men and women. So we need to be slow to criticize, and we need to be quick to encourage. Our words are so important.
Well, and that goes back to what you said earlier about the woman who believed in you, even when
Yeah,
nobody else
yeah,
did, or even when you didn't believe in yourself. You know, when somebody believes in you, even when you don't believe in yourself, all of a sudden you start to think
yeah,
maybe there's something there. Maybe I can believe in myself. So
yeah.
really good. Model it yourself. Be the example. Slow to criticize, quick to encourage. Number three.
Numero tres would be walk with them through it.
Mm,
As they face their challenges, as they face their trials, walk with them through it. Don't leave them alone. Man, a perfect example. We're in the middle of this coronavirus thing. My kids are doing the online school. My third grader is having a hard time with science, just kind of struggling. And we actually have been facing some obstacles of our own. We've been building a chicken coop at our house, and so while that's a whole other story. But
yeah.
while we've been building that chicken coop, my kid's watching on the iPad his third grade science while my wife and I are building this chicken coop, and he's like about to cry because he does not understand it. And my wife just puts down the tools, stops what we're doing, and just holds him and just kind of helps him, like, just know that we're there. And so she walks with him in those moments, to just help him figure it out and to learn it. And I think that's just so important that these kids know that somebody's on their side, and not only somebody, because their friends are there, whatever, but to know that my mom, my dad, that they're going to not be too busy for me, that they're going to have enough margin in their life, they're going to have enough time for me to walk with me through the things that they feel like are important. It may not be that feel like it's that big a deal, but to them, if it's important, it's important. And so we want to walk with them
Yeah.
through it.
That's so good. So, I mean, model it yourself. That's something that we all have to do. We can't expect them to do something we're not doing ourselves.
Yeah,
Slow to criticize, quick to encourage. We need to watch what we say as parents. And then number three, walk with them through it, and help them to know that we're the number one champion. I will say this as we wrap up. Parents, you may be watching this right now and you may be saying, oh my goodness, I have totally failed at all three of these. Well,
me too.
you know what? Yeah, we all have. And the beauty is today is a new day.
Yeah,
You can start doing these today. And it's
yeah,
not going to come easy. You have to discipline yourself to do it, but you can easily start trying to say more encouraging words and to be more intentional about walking through the challenges with them. And you may not be able to see a change in a day, but if you do this day in and day out, you're going to eventually look up and in a week or a month or a year, your kid may be a completely different person. And it's all because of the little steps that you have taken today to
yeah.
model it, to be slow to criticize, quick to encourage, and to walk through the challenge with them. So I hope this has been an encouragement to you who are watching. If you like the conversation that we have had, you like Jared Greer, you can check him out at overcomingobstacles.com.
Yeah, it's obstacleministry.com.
My bad,
And then,
obstacleministry.com.
yeah, and then I have a YouTube channel, just my name, Jared Greer, a lot of teaching and a lot of fun ninja videos. So check
Cool.
that out.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, if you like this conversation, we ask that you share this episode on your social media feeds. Check us out at fightingfamilies.com. and continue to follow us. Subscribe to this channel and check the next episodes out. We have episodes coming out every week. We're going to have Jared come back on again to talk to us a little bit about that 30 for 30 stuff. I don't know how he lost 30 pounds in 30 days, but we are going to talk about how to have a healthier lifestyle. You know, our kids eat junk food all the time. That's going to be an upcoming episode. So please check us out. Stay connected to Fighting Families. And until next time, be sure that you fight for your family today.
You have been listening to the Fighting Families podcast with Preston Cave. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss new episodes each week. If you like today's program, we want to encourage you to share it with your friends and family members. To learn more about the resources we have to offer, visit us at www.fightingfamilies.com. Until next time, be sure you fight for your family today.